Hello, everybody. First of all, thank you, Scott, for inviting me to be here. He reached out and asked if I would introduce Sonja Shaw. And I've never actually met Sonja, but I've been following you from a distance, so it is an honor to do that. And I wanted to just share a few personal things about my story and my journey, and I'm hoping that it will inspire all of you for maybe family members you might have or next door neighbors. But right around 2016, I came down with a severe brain injury. It damaged my ability to think critically, and it's a very common injury that about half the country has, especially white, liberal women and Democrats. Can anybody guess what it is? Yes. I had a severe case of TDS. Now, I didn't really know at the time where it came from or how I got it, but it was pretty bad. And I only learned like 10 years later how I got it. I don't know if any of you know where it came from, but it was actually created in a bus in 2005 when Donald Trump, who was starring on The Apprentice, thought he was having a private conversation with George W.H. Bush's nephew, Billy Bush, Access Hollywood reporter. He didn't know that everything he was saying was being recorded. Well, they saved that recording until 2016, and they unleashed 5 words. So I loved what Gary was saying because he was talking about how a few words can create a movement in motion. And those few words led to the Me Too movement. And the Me Too movement led to the Women's March, where 4 million mostly white liberal women wearing pink hand-knitted hats marched in Washington. Do you remember? Now, I didn't go to the march, but I did donate for the hats. I'm glad you guys are laughing and nobody's getting mad at me. But they always say that you don't change until something hits you personally, right? When you have a paradigm shift. And there were subtle changes along the way where I started to gradually wake up. And one of them was in 2017. Now, my oldest son is 20, but he was in, I think, the 5th grade. And he gets in the car after school, and he just asks me, "Mom, why are all the women so mad at all of the men?" And I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he starts sharing all of these things he heard in school that day. And my first reaction was to defend the women, right? So I started to explain it to him. And he just looks at me and he listened as I went on for a rant for 15 minutes. And he just said, "But I didn't do any of that," right? So what is my son learning from all of the female teachers in his school? What is being fed to my kid? And that was the beginning of the wake up for me, where I started to recover from TDS. But the official cure for TDS for me was, I kid you not, April Fool's Day, 2020. And 2 weeks to flatten the curve, had not flattened the curve. It didn't. And I was like, wait a minute, I thought it was just gonna be 2 weeks. And then my daughter, I walked into her room and she was face down in bed, crying. "What's the point of living?" And I said, "We're not doing this. We're not doing this." And I told everybody we're not doing this. And I reached out to all of the people that I knew, thinking all of my liberal women would be like, "Yeah, we're not following orders either." Guess what they told me? "We're safer at home." And then they called me all kinds of names. And I was like, oh gosh, they really are the nasty women. So since then, I have woken up for real. And I've come to understand what's been happening in our schools and what led up to that moment of total mass compliance. And why was it that everybody was so comfortable to stay home and watch Netflix and not question orders? And it was the gradual brainwashing over time that led to that mass compliance. I always write out a speech and then I skipped all of it, and now I'm trying to figure out where I am. So one of the things for me that I've come to realize is that our kids aren't learning in school to have pride in America, but they are learning to be proud of identifying as a furry. They are learning to be proud to identify as a they, them. And what I want is for America to raise kids like I was raised. And I grew up watching Wonder Woman on television. Sorry, am I speaking too close? Okay. I grew up watching Wonder Woman on television, but the Wonder Woman that I grew up with, she came from Paradise Island to America to save America from Nazi spies. Well, today, 50% of young students actually think socialism is a good idea. And according to a study of Cato, their think tank, they found that 75% of young people under the age of 30 think communism is a great idea. So the lockdowns for me, though they were traumatic, it was a wake-up call where I understood that the fate of our nation is truly in our hands, and it is in the hands of the parents, because we are raising the next generation of kids. And what happens in public schools does not stay in public schools. These kids are going to be the ones ruling our country. And so we have to change what's happening now. And I don't want to leave you with doom and gloom, but with hope. Because what came out of 2020 were people like Sonja Shaw. Sonja Shaw, while we were waging our small war in Palos Verdes, was taking on the giants in Sacramento. She, like so many of us, started first to fight the mask mandates, then fight the vaccine mandates. And then she didn't just complain. She decided to get in the game, and she ran for the school board of Chino Valley, and she won. Not only did she win, but then she was selected to be president of the board. And while she was there on the board, she passed a common sense policy ensuring that if a child changes their sex from a boy to a girl, that parents be notified. Makes sense, right? So what happened? Rob Bonta, the Attorney General, Gavin Newsom, Tony Thurmond, these men all came after one mom shutting her down, trying to attack her. They filed a lawsuit against her, claiming that she was discriminating against trans children by telling their parents they changed gender. So guess what she did? She just removed gender out of the policy. Parents will now be notified anytime a child changes anything on their student records. And guess what happened to poor Bonta? He lost all his weapons, and he couldn't come after Sonja because the policy was no longer discriminatory. It was a policy to protect all children. Yeah. So because I've watched Sonja from social media, what I have seen is she has been viciously attacked. There have been people that have threatened to dismember her, to kill her family. And you know what she does? she runs directly into the fire. Every time somebody hits her, she comes back full force, swinging harder. And when the unions and all these crazy, because I've dealt with them on a small level, when these crazy activists have come after her, they demand she apologize. But she says, I will not apologize for telling the truth because I answer to God. And now Sonja Shaw is running to take charge of the California public school system, which means she's going to be responsible for 5.4 million students.
Yay!
Yeah. Because the children of today are the future leaders of America. And so we need good leaders now who love our kids and who will protect their bodies and protect parents' rights. So it is my honor and privilege to introduce to all of you Sonja Shaw.